What's up, everybody? This is the Finance Football Channel. We are the Schluter Bros. We're here to get you draft ready this off season, help you dominate your league this year. What's up, Adam? What's on tap over there? How you doing in Nashville?
We are doing wonderful. Thank you, Kyle. How's things looking over there in Wisconsin?
Cold and rainy.
Ugh, that sounds painful. That's why I moved to Nashville right there.
At least it's not snowing.
True that. We have had some snow in May before, so yeah, I guess that's glass half full right there for you. Alrighty, folks. Today we are coming in first with the Would You Rather segment. Would you rather? Our first one of the year. We're going to touch on that. We're going to go over some free agency relevant news. Today we are breaking down one of the most impressive teams from last year in the good old Commanders.
Dun,
We're
dun,
thrilled to
dun,
be
dun.
thrilled to be
Washington
talking about them.
Commanders.
Absolutely. Love that. We'll go over all their fantasy relevant players. And then, of course, we're going to finish with the Big and Huskies, the O-line breakdown, often overlooked when we're talking about fantasy, but so important for running backs, quarterbacks, everybody. Wow, what a season for Jayden Daniels and those Commanders, Kyle. Jayden Daniels was a number 2 pick. And I want to start off with a question for you on that. Is Jayden Daniels the best number 2 draft pick of all time? And before you answer that, that's in the likes of Kelvin Johnson, Eric Dickerson, Marshall Faulk, Randy White, and Lawrence Taylor. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean that's some pretty prestigious company there. Megatron, we've had for years on fantasy rosters.
Oh yeah,
Marshall Faulk, those are all phenomenal players at the highest level, in my opinion.
yep,
Um, and it's just too soon to tell. Come on, too soon
sure,
to tell.
sure.
However, we got to think about we did the Bears last week. How do you think the Bears felt last season with Caleb Williams watching what Jayden Daniels did in Washington?
Man, that is that is too good. They were staring at the floor, just cussing themselves out. Probably. Caleb Williams still has his time to show himself, but early on, it looks like there is a clear winner in that draft, and that was the Commanders. But
Yeah,
we
very,
love it.
very, very surprising. Finished as QB5 on the year and just to the NFC Championship, a team that's just been bad year after year. And then, a lot came together. We'll, dive into on this show here today.
Oh yeah.
What's next here?
Yep, let's get into it. Our first Would You Rather segment. I'm going to start with questioning you. Let's see how we do. We're going to dive right into it here. First one being in a one quarterback fantasy league, would you rather have the number one quarterback, the number one running back, or the number one wide receiver, and why?
I'm still going to say the number one quarterback just because quarterbacks score more points.
Okay,
So it would be the most points of any of those positions on my team.
sure, sure. What if I said PPR? Would that change your opinion at all?
No, still the
Okay,
most points.
okay. Love it. Love it. Love it. Moving right along, and in honor of the good old Commanders, who would you rather have between Scary Terry or Deebo Samuel this year?
This is tough. I think
Mm-hmm.
this is going to be tough to as we deep dive into it today, but I would still have to go Scary Terry.
Okay, and why is that?
He's already got a year with Jayden, and with this Cliff Kingsbury run offense, it just seems to be a really great fit.
Yeah,
And he's got a little more youth, in my opinion,
yeah.
a
I mean,
little
I
more
think
speed.
yeah, with your response, I think that's what the consensus of the masses would be. Scary Terry being a top 10 wide receiver last year. We'll get more into maybe
This
why
is a
I
team,
think.
though, that I wouldn't mind actually having two of their receivers.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Not
All right.
obviously not in the same fantasy roster, but in different formats, different leagues, Deebo or Terry, I would draft.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that one. All right, this one going over a little history favorites here. I like this one. If these players were in their prime and playing this year, would you rather own for fantasy LaDainian Tomlinson, Adrian Peterson, or someone you've owned quite a bit, Julio Jones?
I'm going to say LT,
Ooh.
mainly because there was one game he threw for a touchdown, he ran for a touchdown, and he caught a touchdown.
Jack of all
None of those
trades.
other guys are doing that.
Jack of all trades. He was a touchdown machine.
He was a beast.
Oh my goodness, he was. But Adrian Peterson, he was one of the most fun guys to watch run over the Packers' weak
Oh,
run
yes,
defense
for
year after
sure.
year after year.
And Julio
Love it.
Jones was always a talented receiver. I won a couple of championships with him on my roster.
Yeah.
He
Just a
did
freak.
always seem to struggle with touchdowns, which is I was always so confusing to me because he's such a big body player. I feel like
Yep.
every year when I needed one from him, he'd catch a big pass and he'd be down at the 1 yard line.
Yep. I do remember a couple
There
of
was
those
like a dumb
shoestrings.
statistic about that.
Yep. Yep. He was a yards and catches freak, though. But up
Yeah.
to your point, lacked in the TDs. All right. I love it.
All right, your turn. You ready? Would you rather
Yep.
Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers in their prime?
Oof. Fantasy purposes, I got to go Aaron Rodgers. But in terms of watching or who I'd rather have on my team, I'd got to go Brett Favre just for the gunslinger excitement that he brings to the table. But Rodgers is just so much more accurate. I'd go Rodgers for fantasy.
Okay, Lamar or Josh Allen? This year's draft, Lamar or Josh Allen 2025. Who do you want?
You know, Lamar being the number one last year, he's still got the legs underneath him. That is tough. I'd go Lamar. I'd go Lamar just for I think he's got another year or two where he's going to be a rushing king. So I'm going Lamar.
Okay, 2025 this year, Saquon or Bijan?
Oofta. Oofta. I mean, Bijan much younger, probably a little bit more talented. Saquon in that offensive line, though, when you got one of the best running backs in the league behind one of the best offensive lines in the league, I think I would have to choose Saquon.
Okay. And then last, would you rather draft in person in Las Vegas or draft remote but have the number one overall pick?
You know, I've had to do remote when I moved to Montana, and you boys were sitting in that room and having all that fun. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. So I would rather be in person in Vegas. We've done that before. We did it at the Link Hotel and a couple other spots. I'd have to go
Beer Park.
Vegas.
I think Beer Park was one of my favorite drafts.
That was, oh man, that was fun. But yeah, you can give me the number 10 pick. If we're going to Vegas, you just can't top that.
I agree with that. All right, let's we're just going to talk about the Washington Commanders moves this offseason here because
boy, is there a lot of them.
There was a lot of them already.
Holy smokes.
So I'm going to go through here. They did acquire left tackle Laramie Tunzel from the Houston Texans in a trade. They've also acquired Deebo Samuel from the San Francisco 49ers. I think we already talked about that, but we're going to deep dive onto this show today. So two big trades on the offense there. They also traded Jahan Dotson to the Eagles. The free agency signings. So Michael Gallop, I initially just look at this as a depth piece. You know, maybe he can commit for somewhere on the roster. Nate Herbig, offensive guard. Zach Ertz, they re-signed as well. Jeremy Nichols, they re-signed as well. Marcus Mariota, backup quarterback, they re-signed. A center, Michael Dieter, re-signed. KJ Osborn was re-signed. Noah Brown, re-signed. John Bates, tight end, re-signed. Chris Rodriguez, running back, re-signed. So that both their third and fourth running backs have been re-signed. Some depth at receiver has been re-signed. Some depth on the offensive line. Some depth at the tight end has re-signed. So a lot of re-signings there.
Yep. You got your breath back after all that? My goodness.
No, I'm not done though.
Finish it out, baby.
Now let's talk about some of the departures because they've also had a lot of those.
Yeah.
Diami Brown, wide receiver, departed. And I went back last and watched the playoff games this week. And he made some clutch plays in the playoffs for them last year. So Diami Brown went to the Jacksonville Jaguars, which I think is interesting. And we're just going to do offense for the sake of this. Offensive tackle Cornelius Lucas signed with the Browns.
Get it out.
Zacchaeus, wide receiver Zacchaeus. We talked about him last week. He signed with the Chicago Bears. He's gone. Jeff Driscoll, backup quarterback, free agent. And Jamison Crowder, currently a free agent. He also made a couple clutch catches in those playoffs last year. So I've seen a lot of what's departing. They're just kind of bringing in some fresh blood to compete, in my opinion, on a lot of these positions.
Yeah.
All right. You want to talk about any of that, or are you going to move on to the draft picks?
Nope. I think we're going to get you a little oxygen, and I'm going to go on to the draft picks. Good deal. All right. Commanders draft this year. I was impressed with it. I like what they did. Most importantly, first round pick, number 29 overall, Josh Connerly, an offensive tackle out of Oregon. This bad boy is big, and more importantly, he is athletic. I don't know if you've seen the Oregon offense move, they move the ball. They're very fast paced. They're very athletic at every position. So getting them an athletic, left or right tackle probably to help protect Jayden Moore. Absolutely love that. Pick number 2, 61 overall, Trey Amos, cornerback out of Ole Miss. He's got some studly talent to help that very young and very athletic defense that was very impressive last year. Pick number 4, this one's a little bit more relevant for fantasy, Jalen Lane out of Virginia Tech. I like this cat for one reason: 4.34 40 speed. He's going to be a slot guy. He's also going to be in the returning game when they're special teams. So you're definitely going to see him out there catching balls. And with that speed, someone to definitely keep your eyes on. Surrounding Jayden with that type of speed is great. Pick number 6, pick 205 for them, Kane Medrano, linebacker out of UCLA. And round 7, they picked Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, running back out of Arizona. So they did add a little bit of running back piece to that. And Ja'Cory, that running back, he was like ineligible. I don't know if it was last year. He was ineligible a little bit. So he kind of flew under the radar for a lot of NFL teams. So he might have been a little good value pick for them. We'll keep tabs on that. Any comments on the draft picks?
Yeah, so a lot of people were thinking they would address the pass rush a little bit more in the draft. That was kind of the downfall of their defense last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it really looks like they just went best available.
Yeah.
And the
Which
focus,
is what you got to do.
The focus, I think, from what I've seen so far here, is protecting Jayden Daniels. Seems to be like number 1 overall. Let that guy ball out. Strengthen the run game a little bit, and then give weapons in a form of depth pieces that will fit in with the Cliff Kingsbury offense. Seems to be the so far the game plan. That cornerback was probably the best available off the board. He's a pretty highly ranked cornerback there out of college. And the receiver, I like that receiver for a dynasty format. This year, he's going to compete as with the backups, and there's a lot of competition there. And the running back, I feel the same way. He's going to compete. Jeremy Nichols, the other guy, they're going to be behind Ekeler and Brian Robinson. They're just going to be competing, and you're going to have to see who ekes it out.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they're breeding competition in that backfield, and you got to respect that.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. We're going to move on to Commanders overview, folks, and what a season it was for these Commandos. I think the most impressive season, maybe in the last couple of years, let alone last year. I mean, what a comeback for this team, led by Jayden Daniels. They were 12-5, second in the NFC East, only second to the Philadelphia Super Bowl winning Eagles. For many years, I have considered this to be the worst division in football, with the Giants and the Commanders always being terrible, never being able to truly rebuild. And on top of that, Dallas has always been overrated and never really that good. Good on paper, but never in production. So I've always widely considered this to be the worst division in football. And times are changing. Times are changing.
I'm surprised
rapidly.
you said that. I'm surprised you say that.
No, I do. I mean, I got it out a little bit for Philly, the Giants, and the Cowboy. I kind of got it out for those 3 teams a little bit. So a little bit of bias there, but they're just bad. They're always bad.
Philadelphia's been good for a while. Dallas is definitely fantasy relevant for a long time. And
fantasy relevant, but overrated. They're always talked about America's team. Everybody talks about it. It's like, shut up until they win a playoff game. I don't want to hear a word come out of anyone's mouth about the Cowboys until they win a playoff game. And even then talk about them. But all right, back to the Commanders. Last year, 17th in passing rank. 100 or 215 yards per game, rushing rank 3rd in the NFL, 154 rushing yards per game. And just to give everyone a quick reminder on how their season finished up in the playoffs, they beat Buccaneers by a game-winning field goal in the first round. They then murdered a Dan Campbell-led playoff Lions team, which was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. A young team in the Commanders destroying, not just beating, destroying a Dan Campbell team. I didn't think a Dan Campbell team could get destroyed, and they did. And then they lost a tough one in the NFC Championship to the Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles. Very impressive season. Just wow. Love that. Without further ado, Kyle, let's get into it. Let's get into these fantasy players.
All right, let's talk fantasy football relevance for the Washington Commanders 2025. The man at the helm, the dual threat guy, Jayden Daniels, greatest rookie QB season ever.
100%.
Finished QB 5 last year in fantasy. Early projections, they have him at QB 3. and again, with those top guys, it's just like, in my opinion, who do you think is going to have a better season?
Yeah.
Upside, touchdowns, be more competitive, or has a more favorable schedule. That's a lot of how I look at those. Um, why don't you break down some of your notes,
Yep.
and then I'll get into how I feel about them.
I want to re-highlight the very first thing you said that was so subtle. Greatest rookie quarterback season ever. Ever. It's not even close. Granted, there's some other studly ones that were had,
You
but
won
greatest,
offensive rookie of the year. Yep, all the
I
stuff.
mean, greatest rookie QB season ever. I just love that for the Commanders. He had 3,568 passing yards, 25 passing touchdowns, only 9 interceptions. A stat that I love, 69% completion percentage, which is wonderful for a rookie, especially a rookie runner. Speaking of runner, he rushed for 891 yards and 6 touchdowns. You want to talk about fantasy ceiling? There it is right there, folks. Almost 900 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground. He broke Andrew Luck's record for offensive yards by a rookie. And then another stat that I absolutely love, he finished the season with over 100 QBR rating, 100.1 QBR rating for a rookie. These stats are just
It's dirty.
insane.
It's dirty.
Insane. And he's an electric runner. But what I want to highlight more than anything when I saw and watched all of his games, he's such an accurate passer. He's one of the few rushing quarterbacks that have come out of college, and he is so accurate. So love to see that. Wish this cat nothing but the best. He is just amazing and love watching him play. Another little tidbit I want to throw in here. A lot of rushing quarterbacks early on, they tend to just run the ball when in doubt. He does not. If he has an
He
open guy,
prefers to throw them.
he gets it into his playmaker's hands. And to have that mindset at such a young age with knowing he could have ran on a lot of plays, that speaks to longevity potential of his career, minimizing hits, getting in your playmaker's hands. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Fantasy quarterback. Get him on your team, folks.
Yeah.
One
So
hot take. Okay, you go ahead. All right. You sure know?
Give us your hot take.
Hot take of the day, folks. We will see in Jayden Daniels our first ever 4,000-yard passer and 1,000-yard rusher in one season. No one has ever done it. Lamar's gotten close. Josh Allen's gotten close. Mike Vick, that stud, has gotten close, but no one's done it. I'm calling it here. I don't know if it'll be this season, but he is going to do it. 4,000-yard passing and 1,000-yard rushing. Get him on your teams, folks, because that is just endless amounts of points.
I like it. I like it. So, and my thoughts here is, when I watched him play, he has a ridiculously fast release also.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the game with him in Philadelphia, and I was watching Ertz throw, and it felt like Ertz was throwing in slow motion compared to Jayden Daniels. He was releasing it that fast.
Well,
and it reminds me of like how Lamar and Mike Vick played a little bit.
Yeah.
Those are the closest things that I was thinking of. And you're absolutely right. He doesn't want like Philadelphia also, they do some more designed quarterback runs. They don't do a lot of that. So the offense, the coordinator is Cliff Kingsbury. He was the former Arizona Cardinals head coach with Kyler Murray. He also spent a lot of time in college as head coaches for college teams. And he likes the air raid kind of pass style, spread the ball out, have a mobile quarterback. And I kind of didn't realize how much of the plays short yardage are manufactured passes. Going back and looking, like, not just wide receiver screens, even though they have some of those, they're manufactured short pass plays, like funnel plays, where they're trying to get one or two guys the ball. They're trying to shift defense's attention one way to throw it back the other way, and then set up receivers as blockers. So they're doing a lot to promote those guys. And I really think Deebo Samuel is going to fit in perfectly, and it's why they traded for him with that type of offense. And then obviously Jayden Daniels, he's just so electric. He's so fast. And then he can sling it so quickly. So I don't know what else you want to say about him. He's a top 3. He could be anybody's QB1 off the board. I would love to have him on any team. He'd be somebody I'd be targeting as much as possible in fantasy football this season.
Absolutely. And to echo that, he would be my number 1 QB off the board, hands down, without a question, because he has that room for growth from year 1 to year 2 that the likes of Josh Allen and Lamar have already had. So therefore, he is without a doubt my number 1 quarterback, which goes against the consensus of number 3. But I mean, how much more can we drool over this cat? He's amazing. Get him on your team. So fun to watch. Watch his games. It is just fun.
Okay, let's talk about the guys he's slinging it to. First of all, Scary Terry McLaurin.
Terry.
depending on your format, PPR or standard receiver. He finished as wide receiver 5 last year. 5. I don't think anybody thought that was possible for him, like even in the range of his outcomes.
Yeah.
But
Number
in
7
this
in PPR.
offense with this quarterback, he pulled it off. He had, was it 13 touchdowns last year?
Yeah.
13. So a complete outperformance. Um, Early ESPN rankings this year have him at wide receiver 16 and primarily just pulling back his touchdowns to 6 this year. Otherwise, last year he had 82 grabs, just over 1,000 yards, and it's basically a similar projection this year. But really complete outperformance on his touchdowns last year.
Yeah. I think
And I think
ESPN
if they're going to continue to, beef up this offensive line, spread the ball around, like he's still going to have a chance at that again. I could see a little bit less, but I think I'd be higher on him than 6 touchdowns. Beefed up offensive line. You give Jayden Daniels time back there, he's finding guys open no matter what, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think ESPN did them a little dirty with that, projections of 6 touchdowns. Maybe that's because Deebo's coming in and they got some other guys in there. But to be cut by more than half, I don't agree with that. I think it's around more of the 10 touchdown marker. Just an absolute stud. He's a fast guy. He is 29 years old, so no longer in his youth, but absolutely a stud. And I think Deebo coming over actually helps him a bit. Sure, it's going to take away some targets, but it's also going to take away some looks and some pressure off him because he didn't really have a lot of help at the other wide receiver 2 spot.
So let me put out Deebo's projections 2025, 63 grabs, 890 yards, 4 touchdowns, and they're giving him 100 yards rushing with a touchdown. What do you think about these two guys? I think that might be a little light, honestly, too. I could see them both being 1,000-yard receivers in this offense.
100%. 100%. And barring they both stay healthy because they are getting older. It's just starting to get, the hamstring era when these guys get a little older. But nonetheless, I agree with you. I think both could easily be over 1,000 yards. And I love that they're getting 2 veteran guys to help out Jayden. 2 guys that have been there before. They know what they're doing. They're great route runners. And don't get me wrong, Deebo Samuel underperformed last year miserably. And I think this new team is going to give him a little bit of fresh love for the game, especially with such a great team he got moved to. So I think these 2 guys are going to be great for him. This is the first time Deebo, and you may disagree with this is the first time Deebo is going to be considered a number 2 wide receiver for his team. And with that comes number 2 cornerbacks. Deebo's still a freak. He's still fast as heck. So he's going to get some number 2 DBs on him, and I think he is going to have a great season. What are your thoughts there? You agree or disagree with that?
I mean, he's found a lot of his success over the years with San Francisco as I guess gadget receiver is kind of the better way of putting it, but being a physical beast as a receiver running the ball after the catch. And he's used to score a lot on like manufactured run plays or similar in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I remember there was talks about that. I remember how many hits he was taking and talked about his contract negotiation and his usage as a running back and all that drama. So, but I think for this offense specifically on what they're doing, I think his skill set is on paper could not be a better fit.
Yeah.
And, so we talked about some of the guys that they released, Dami Brown and Zacchaeus. Those guys weren't great for fantasy last year, but they were key components in this offense. So I think, having Deebo is a much better option to create offense with and to design your offense and to help Scary Terry. Could I see him taking away touchdowns from Scary Terry? Yes. I think that is what the downside would be for Scary Terry. But I think there's enough in this offense for both of these guys to have great seasons. I would be lower on any other receiver, and I'm probably not drafting any other receiver in any format on this team.
Sure, less dynasty.
They have a lot of depth. There'll be guys that will emerge that could have potential for fill-ins and those things, but I just don't know who it is. Why don't you touch on the 2 next guys on the depth chart?
Yep. Right before that, though, I do want to mention with our boy Deebo, 49ers last year had to put him in the backfield because their backfield was so hurt. He's getting older. Get him out of the backfield. You have Ekeler. You
I
have
don't think
Brian
he will be
Robinson.
there this
You
year.
have other guys there. Do not let him get hurt on a run play. He is a great receiver and asset for Jayden. Do not let him get hurt on a run play. Like, just get him out of the backfield unless you're going to do him on some swing routes out of there. Use him as a wide receiver. Don't put him at risk at this point in his career, and let the running backs take those hits. That's what they're there and built for.
Yeah, I think
So
that's
that's my last tidbit on that. And I kind of, 49ers, early on in his career, I respected it because he was so quick and explosive. But once you're getting him older, man, let the dude play his position. All right. With that said, number 3 on the depth chart technically is Luke McCaffrey. Okay, he was a 3rd-round draft pick last year, and to be quite blunt, he severely underperformed, and it wasn't due. It was not due to looks. He played about half of the offensive snaps last season. Okay, so about half. But in terms of production, 24 targets and 18 catches, 168 yards, no touchdowns. I mean, I get he was a rookie. He finished as wide receiver 127, but this bad boy has got to put out this year. If he wants to remain, an asset to this offense, he has to put out this year. He has to do better, and I think he will. But he's really got to show it this year. And then the other bad boy, Noah Brown. They're technically their wide receiver number 4. Last year he put up 35 catches, 56 targets, 450 yards, and 1 touchdown. So
he was injured though for a good part of the season.
He was. Yep, he absolutely was. And then honorable mentions in the receiving group: KJ Osborn, Michael Gallop. Not necessarily important for fantasy purposes unless a couple people go down. But I mean, it's deep. There's some depth at wide receiver position.
Draft pick they drafted.
And their draft pick. Yep, they're number 3. Yep, absolutely. So there's some depth here. There's some playmakers here.
I think receivers 3 to 5, it's going to be very competitive. I think these coaching staff are going to want to make these guys earn spots. McCaffrey included. McCaffrey, that's actually Ed McCaffrey's son, former wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. Funny how those things work. So I mean, I don't think there's really anything else fantasy wise to discuss with these guys. They'll be involved in the offense, and you'll just have to see if anybody can emerge to have any other fantasy relevance.
Yeah. Well, the last comment I want to make back to Deebo, I think you could get some serious value out of Deebo within the draft this year. Why? Because last year he did so poorly.
Yep,
and he was injured some, and he's on a new team. And with all those kind of yellow flags, if you will, you might be able to get him some serious value depending on where he goes within your draft. So keep eyes on that. Keep tabs on that. He's still got it. We'll see how that shakes out when the drafts start happening.
Yep. I like him as a wide receiver value piece on my team. If I want him to be like a wide receiver 2 on my roster, I would want to feel comfortable with other guys that I could fill in if needed as well. But I do think he has upside for, on your roster.
Yep. And he was my number 4th round pick last year and absolutely burned me with his production. So, I say all that with a little bit of hesitancy, but at the same time, I think he's got a fresh year. You're a little salty for sure.
This is just such a good offense, and you want as much as you can get out of it. And I believe there to be upside here.
Yeah, 100%. Let's talk about their real number 3 weapon, Zach Ertz.
You must be higher on him than I am.
Well, okay. He finished tight end. he finished tight end number 7. Okay, so he finished tight end number 7. He's 34 years old. Last year he had 91 targets, 66 catches, 7 touchdowns. Okay, but again, when you're finishing as tight end number 7, I like that area because it means the first top 5 big tight ends are going to go off the board early. And if you punted there and if you didn't grab one, this is a potential option for you to get some value later in the draft if you punted at tight end. On top of that, younger quarterbacks, they like to throw to their tight ends because it's easier routes. There's that linebacker coverage that he can beat. So I do think there's some value there with that. He is getting older, 34 years old. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, that's my take on Ertz. I do like him as a good value tight end if you miss on the first few.
You're higher on him than I am. He's 34 years old. He was re-signed. And all of those things that you said are pretty much true. My take is you're going to see a slide, and there's a second-year tight end, Ben Sennett, behind him. I think he'll be a little more involved in the passing game this year than he was last year. You want to talk
about what's true? What's true is Ben Sennett had 5 catches last year, the whole year.
But then again, he was a rookie last year, and rookie tight ends especially, they're going to take time to develop in the offense.
Tell that to
And
Brock Powers. Tell that to good old Brock.
he's got to be like one of the only exceptions to that. Look at a lot of the other big name tight ends that were drafted in the rookie year. They didn't usually do as well.
Sam
But yes,
Laporta did
Brock
it.
Bowers, give him absolute credit. And there's been a couple of instances like that where we've seen some rookie outperformances in those years, and there will continue to be that. I
Yeah.
just think it's a little harder to predict that. It's a
Yeah.
big jump from college to the NFL.
Yeah, 100%.
So Zach Ertz, I mean, maybe he has a similar season and finish. I just think he's going to be getting aged out, but I think for the team, he'll still be a piece of the offense. He'll help move the chains. He'll be a reliable option.
Yeah.
I just don't see as many touchdowns falling his way this year.
Okay, fair enough. And then honorable mention, tight end position, John Bates. He's a blocking tight end for them. 8 catches all of last year. Just want to mention him so our boy John wasn't left out of the call here.
Johnny boy.
Why don't you lead us into the promised land, one of your favorite positions, the running backs?
I've always liked Brian Robinson, too, as an underrated running back.
Very much so.
Yes, I think bringing in Ekeler last year definitely hurts his production.
Yep.
But he's kind of always had a pass-catching guy right behind him. That's just how they've always ran this offense. But he's a very talented, very physical running back. He does the dirty work for the team, and especially in the spread offense, he's a good running back for that offense.
Yeah, he can also catch the ball very well.
He can catch. He can catch.
Ekeler took that from him, but that used to be some of his best abilities with catching and running. Absolutely.
So I think like again, last year he had 800 yards, 8 touchdowns on the ground. I still think that's his floor.
Yeah, I mean, he played 14 games last year, and let's throw in he finished at RB number 28, played 14 games. This year, he's projected as RB 34, which I think is.
I think they're doing him dirty.
They're
doing him dirty.
He easily has top 20 running back potential, and with an offense, remind you, that moves the ball as well as this team does. I think, I think that's a slap in the face, and he could be a top 20 running back easily with his talent.
Yeah, I think this is probably the most value on this team.
Yeah,
if he's actually going that late in your draft, like there is a lot of upside for him here and touchdowns. Yes, Jayden Daniels can rush it in. Yes, this offense has short passes and manufactured plays that can steal those touchdowns. But if they're going to run in the red zone, you got to think Brian Robinson's running it in right now. Ekeler, sure, he could do some catches and get into the end zone, but he's another year older. And the guys behind Jeremy Nichols, et cetera, they'll fight for some work, but they won't really be relevant at all.
Yeah.
Do you have any fantasy relevance for Austin Ekeler? Last year, he had 367 yards rushing and 366 yards receiving. So
I know
about as balanced as a running back could ever be in that standpoint.
For sure. I mean, so Brian Robinson, we said projected running back 34. Ekeler projected running back 37. I think there'll be a much greater separation between those two guys. But I do like Ekeler. And when Brian Robinson was out last year, Ekeler stepped up to the plate and the bad boy performed. He performed. He's great with catching. If you have a PPR league and you go 0 RB strategy, getting Ekeler or either one of these guys, but more so Ekeler for value's sake, towards the end is a great pickup if you need a running back, if you went 0 RB, just because he is going to get those catches. And that bad boy's older. Don't get me wrong. I don't have his exact age. He is older. He's
got collector plates on him out there.
He has been bruised and abused. But one thing I love about Austin Ekeler, he looks like such a small guy, and he runs like a tank. The Chargers always use him in the goal line. He would take linebackers head on and run through him. And I was like, how is this small dude just running through?
He's a physical specimen.
These 250. I mean, he just packs a punch, a little bowling ball. But yes, again, PPR leagues deeper in the end of the draft, absolutely get him. And heaven forbid, if Brian Robinson ever goes down, you now have a number 2 running back just because of his PPR play.
Okay.
Honorable mentions. Jeremy McNichols, I don't want him unless both of those players fall off a cliff. And then that rookie in the 7th round they drafted, someone to keep your eyes on in terms of running backs. Anything else on RBs, Kyle?
Nope. I like Brian Robinson of value.
Yep.
Let's get to the coaching. So Dan Quinn, wow. I'm just going to put my hands together for him last season. Nobody expected this his first year in Washington. Dan Quinn spent a lot of his time on the defensive side of the ball for his entire career. He was 2015 to 2020. He was the Atlanta Falcons head coach. When they
Yep.
were a playoff team, he took them to a Super Bowl. So he's definitely a good head coach. And most notably, he built that defensive Cowboys defense when it was, in its prime when he was there, and that was a scary defense. So he does a great job, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
And then here we are marrying Cliff Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator on this team. And what a dynamic this created. So I've been very surprised on that. I know I touched on that. Cliff Kingsbury, he coached with Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray, air raid style. He's done a lot as a head coach in different college teams. And it just seemed to be the perfect fit for these guys in this team. So if they can just keep that going, I see nothing but good things in their future here.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And just to echo that, this team is young. This defense is really young.
Other than Bobby Wagner.
Yeah, okay.
You're going to need a new middle linebacker like yesterday.
Nah, Bobby Wagner, I'll give that man every last.
And they could use a better pass rush, but
yeah,
there's enough here right now where either way, they're going to be good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a very young team minus the receivers on the outside and their wonderful left tackle in Laramie Tunzel. With that introduction, we are going to dive into the offensive line. This offensive line is much improved. It was great last year. It outperformed last year, and it only got better. And I love this for Jayden Daniels. They are protecting this cat. We already mentioned how in the first round they got our bad boy Josh Connerly, a very athletic tackle, pairing him with Laramie Tunsil. Love that. Laramie Tunsil, if you have him on your offensive line, your offensive line is going to be good because he is one of the most veteran, one of the best left tackles to ever play the game. On top of that, they added center Tyler Biadasz. And last year they got Brandon Coleman, a tackle as well. This is going to be an improved offensive line that was already solid. As it reads from left to right, you got Laramie Tunsil, Nick Allegretti, Tyler Biadasz, Sam Cosme, and what's this right tackle? Brandon Coleman. That's right. And Brandon Coleman's going to have to compete with the draft pick, Josh Connerly, who I fully expect to be playing on that team, whether it's right away or very early in the season. But this line minus Tunsil is young. It's athletic, and it's going to be here to stay for some years to come. They have protected Jayden Daniels with this piece. Great for the passing attack and also great for the running attack for Brian Robinson. So great offensive line here, guys. No real question marks on this offensive line, which is what you want to hear when you're drafting any of these players because they have a big impact.
Love it. So who are you targeting this year for this team in fantasy?
I mean, if you have without a question, Jayden Daniels, we run a 2-quarterback league. If you can get him on your team, great. I'm fine with Brian Robinson or Ekeler, depending on where they go, of course. I don't know if I'm going to do me a Deebo again, but I am hopeful for him. And I got Scary Terry. I'd be more than happy to get Scary Terry again.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in this week on the Fantasy Football Channel. We hope the Commanders run it back to the championship next year. Tune in next week as we move through each NFC.